What's going on, Suns Nation? This is Go Gorilla Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Johnny Hicks, and on that side of the screen, we got Austin Sear.
What's going on, everybody?
Austin, this just feels right, man. This just feels like something that the community needs. They need two guys to come together to give you the no-nonsense, fun fan perspective of the Phoenix Suns.
I think you're absolutely right. If this world needs anything, it's definitely two more 20-something white dudes coming together talking about sports.
Exactly.
Definitely. We are in a scarcity of that. I'm glad we're able to fill a void.
That is a great way to put it, but we are going to do our best to give you viewers the best quality of just fandom that one can ask for.
We're going to be here talking about what everybody's already talking about. We're just going to talk about it better.
Exactly. Well put.
There we go.
All right. With that said, Austin, we got the NBA draft coming up. We're about a week away.
Tomorrow? Yeah.
I've been wanting it to be with this, it's fastly approaching. We've been waiting on this. We've been waiting for the number one pick
years
for so long. And
50 years.
We've been robbed so many times. And so it still doesn't even feel like, I feel like they're just going to come to us on draft night and be like, actually, you guys, we messed up the balls. It's actually supposed to be the Kings have the number one pick. You guys have the number two pick.
Or the number 4, which is probably more likely to happen.
Exactly. Well said. So with that being said, we have the number one overall pick. You've had a lot of time to think about where the Suns could go, what they could do with this pick. What are your ultimate decisions when it comes to Ayton versus Luka Doncic or the field? Where are you leaning as of today, 4 days before the NBA draft?
This is such an exciting NBA draft right now, and I cannot remember the last time we had this much talent. I feel like last season we were saying a similar thing when we had such a stacked class from Josh Jackson, Lonzo Ball, Markelle Fultz, Jason Tatum, and then everybody else coming after that. There's so many good players, but this year is even more exciting, especially with the amount of bigs that we have involved in this conversation. Even the guards are big. Talking about Doncic at 6'8". It's a very, very exciting draft class, and I'm stoked we have the number one pick. I think you put it best there. Do you take Ayton, Doncic, or the field for this one? And I think all Suns fans are in agreement that whoever we take, we just have to hit. We cannot bust on this pick. There are no Anthony Bennett's allowed in this year's draft. We can't afford it this time.
Especially with a draft, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but especially with a draft that's this loaded with talent.
Right. So to your question, who are we taking on this one? If I'm McDonough and I'm looking at everything going on, I know you don't make a decision based on job security. With that said, though, you go on based on risk assessment. And looking at this draft, factoring it through risk assessment, who has the best opportunity to raise your ceiling and who has the least amount of chance to bust. And when you look at all the players on it, there's a reason why DeAndre Ayton is number one in most mock drafts. And it's for those reasons I think I laid out there. Could somebody have a higher ceiling than DeAndre Ayton? Absolutely. I don't think it's out of the question to say that Jaren Jackson Jr. or Luka Doncic or Bamba or Michael Porter or somebody even later in the draft could end up being higher. Not surprising if it did happen. However, Ayton, the way he's built, 267-1 with a 43.5-inch vertical.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, do you know what Vince Carter's vertical is?
Was it 39? Was it 39?
A little higher, 43 inches
43.
For arguably the greatest dunker of all time. 43 and a half inches.
That's
for DeAndre
insane.
Ayton.
Yeah, and he's already 7. Yeah, he's 7'1". I think that you've got to go with Ayton here. You touch on some of those other players that, yeah, they do have that star potential. Another guy that I would just sincerely think about drafting, and I've been an advocate of his for years, and that is Marvin Bagley. I think that he has the talent offensively to be, in 5 years, you're going to look back and say Marvin Bagley was the best guy in that draft. However, I think his bust potential are a little bit greater considering that he can't play defense. Whereas Ayton, I know we didn't see it in college, but it's a different type of game. It's not 1v1. It's not, you don't guard the other center. You're playing zone. And so you can really be taken out of spots and be eliminated from shot blocking. So I think that Ayton can develop I'm more confident that Ayton can develop as a defensive player than Marvin Bagley can.
And let me touch on that one with Ayton. I think that he gets a tough break when it comes to his defensive abilities, considering Ayton, while everyone's got him slotted as a center, an NBA 5, in college, he was playing the 4, and he was playing behind a heavy-footed 5, meaning Ayton is standing outside near the perimeter a lot more often than he will at the next level. And if you consider, homie was guarding guards a lot of the time, 1s, 2s, 3s, more than 5s. And the fact that he's able to hold his own out in the perimeter says a lot about his footwork, his athleticism, his mobility. And I think in the NBA, he's going to have a more appropriate setup. And he's going to surprise us. Similar to how Karl Anthony Towns has surprised us with his lack of rim protecting abilities, I think Ayton's going to be the opposite of that. And he's actually going to surprise us with the things he's able to do defensively.
I sure hope so. I know that we have to get this pick right. And when you're looking at analytics, there, like you said, you have to go with what the numbers are showing, and Ayton is the guy that you need to bring in today's day and age and how players play basketball. He's a perfect fit. And especially when you're pairing him with Booker, who you're about to lock up for a long time, I just don't see any other player being able to fit into our offense for both what we need defensively and offensively. So I think Ayton has definitely got to be the pick here. I was super stoked the night of the lottery picks because I knew that Ayton was, he was going to be the guy, So
and we can't underestimate too. Like, we have as Suns fans had to deal with project players so much, and it's true. There are project players. Probably the best example would be Giannis Antetokounmpo, who, was taken 13, 14, something like that. Yeah. A lot of picks after Alex Len. We know this. Yeah. But so project players do pan out. But when we look at players like an Alex Len, like a Dragan Bender, I'm still not saying Bender's done, but it takes so many years for his body to get to the level where it's actually competitive. And it messes with your mind when you're playing in a league that you probably shouldn't be a part of, while you're also supposed to be potentially a franchise guy. It just doesn't line up. And when you can take a guy like Ayton, who was NBA ready yesterday, and have him playing at that high level in that competitive space, he's going to progress and grow too, but he's not playing starting a couple steps behind. And I think starting a couple steps behind can actually break some players.
Oh, Bender, yeah. And I think Bender is a perfect example of that, where he didn't get off to as fast of a start as a lot of people anticipated. And as a result, like, we've seen it, his confidence wavers on the court. He will pass up open threes. He's not confident in his shot, although he has a gorgeous looking shot. He's just not doing the kind of things that we all expected. Mm-hmm. And now, like you said, he'll grow into his body a little bit more. I expect him, and he has to take a giant leap this year. I think with Koshkov as our coach, I think he can, because he's really good at developing players. And I think the scheme, and this is why I haven't really touched on Luka that much, the scheme I don't think fits Luka as well as Ayton fits in that scheme. And that's not to say anything or knock on Luka. I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to come in and contribute right away. Mm-hmm. But I do have my concerns with, can he be a really dominant ball handler if we bring him in? I just think that when Ayton comes in, we know exactly what his defining role is. We're like, you're the center, you're here. We know what plays we're going to run, all this stuff. And it kind of fits with what our team is forming out to be. And so for me, I just think with all those things combined, he's a big man. Ayton's a big man that doesn't have injury concerns, which is amazing in today's day and age.
Mhm.
So it's the safest pick, and I know that we need to pick a safe pick here.
Yeah, who also has a sky high potential as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not floor, high ceiling. It's a tall house.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm going to jump into my second question here for you, and that is, what would it take? What would you, if you're Ryan McDonough and you're sitting at that 16th spot and you're looking down, what are you willing to give up asset wise, both draft picks and players, if you want to add players, in order to move back up into the top 10? What team would you want to move up to? And what would be your ultimate scenario and saying, if I came out with these, this is the best case scenario for me, and I'm willing to give up this much to get that?
For me, I'm willing to give up everybody expendable. And what I mean by that is everybody who I might be able to find somewhere else. Do I think that TJ Warren is very productive and is going to be a valuable piece to our team and any other team? Yes, I do. Do I think that Bender could evolve into something very special? Sure. Same thing with Chris. Same things with almost all of our rosters, with the exception of Josh Jackson and Booker, of course. For me, I'm looking for guys that are difficult to impossible to find outside of getting a home run free agent or knocking one out if we're doing in the draft. So for me, I'm willing to give up. And with all the other assets we have, considering the picks that we are loaded up with, those are great and we need those for longevity. But if we're building this squad right now, this era, this ascension of the timeline, this part of the Suns, we've had our 7 seconds or less 2006 Phoenix Suns. We've had, the Dan Marley, Charles Barkley, Kevin Johnson era Suns. If we're talking about this era of Suns, I think we need to make it as strong now as possible. We have done a great job of accumulating assets, having a couple good moves and trades, having a couple of good drafts, specifically with Devin Booker. But I think right now we have to invest in this era. So for me, I'm willing to give up all of our picks. I'd like to hold on to the Miami 2021, given the most recent news about Adam Silver and potentially getting rid of the one and done, which we may or may not touch on later. But I would like to hold on to Miami's 2021 pick. Aside from that, I would be willing to give up almost all of our other picks, all of our other assets, if we could get something in. Even this draft is so deep. I mean, if we could go in the top 7, if we could get that Chicago pick, I'd be stoked with that. Of course, I'd be better off with Memphis or anybody higher. But if we could get another top 10 pick, I'd be interested in not selling the farm, but giving up all of our expendable assets to make that happen. People who are not required for this core team we have right now. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really kind of interesting how we have Warren, and I'm not exactly sure what his position is going to be, right? We know he's going to come off the bench. Josh Jackson showed a lot over the second half of the year to really prove that he should be the starter at the small forward position. I like what TJ Warren brings off of the bench as maybe like a 6th member. I think he's perfect for that kind of role. But like you said, when I'm thinking about trades and possible trades that the Suns could do in order to move up, I always end up circling around to TJ Warren and being like, this is probably going to be the asset that we're going to have to put in that are going to really make the offer serious, and that other team, whoever that might be, to really say, okay, I'm willing to do this deal because I like TJ Warren's contract, I like him as a player, and then I don't feel like I'm losing a ton of value, wherever, because of my evaluations, I don't have or I don't need X, Y, or Z player. So with that being said, I think that number 4 spot is very, very interesting to me. And that spot is the Memphis spot. There have been a lot of rumors that have come out that have said that they are eyeing and they are targeting Michael Porter Jr. with that pick. Now, there is a scenario where the Kings end up selecting either Marvin Bagley or Michael Porter Jr. There's a big rumor out there that they might go Michael Porter Jr. because they like his upside and what he has shown throughout his career before his injury. So let's just play devil's advocate here and say that they go Michael Porter Jr. and then you have Atlanta going with Marvin Bagley.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can move in. Maybe Memphis they don't really like what they see there. Potentially they could go with, Luka if they need to. Not really sure he's going to fit in that, that offensive scheme there. So I really think that this could be a spot where the Suns can go to Memphis, who are kind of an aging and kind of in need of more draft picks, and say, hey, we will give you the 16th pick. We will give you next year's Bucks pick. I'm okay with even saying I would give next year's our pick in the first round next year. So they would be getting essentially 3 first rounders and then TJ Warren and maybe a Chris or a Bender, whichever one the Suns would rather, give up. With our offensive scheme, I'm starting to lean towards Chris, even though I think he has the higher potential to be an all-star and be a good player. I think that Bender fits more with our system, and like you said, he has the potential to be a good player. So, you could probably sell that.
Who would you like to take then in that 4th spot?
Either Luka. I think that how crazy would that be? The whole time, especially in Arizona, the whole conversation is Luka versus Doncic. Or Luka versus Doncic, Luka versus Ayton, and then to walk away with those two that everyone was considering like, oh, we have to choose between those, but we end up landing both of them.
We get the hometown guy, and we get the dude who's already played with Coach Kokoshkov. And
yes,
I mean, like, come on. If we got Bagley on top of that, like sometime down the road, then we get all of the people who already have roots right in here.
Right, exactly. But then not only think about it from the perspective of the players. Now we're building a culture of these guys want to be here.
Right.
We've seen it. Aiden has come out and said, I want to be a Phoenix Sun. I grew up, rooting for the Phoenix Suns. I went to school at U of A. His have Luka. Exactly. You have Luka saying he only wants to play for the Phoenix Suns. Yeah. You have Bagley coming out and saying, oh, it's been my lifelong dream to play for the Phoenix Suns. So it's great to see that a lot of these players, and then I'll even add on there Devin Booker, who we already have, but Booker saying, I want to be here. I want this franchise to be built around me. I'm the guy. And so you like to see this. Exactly. You like to see this culture being built of guys saying, I want to be here because I see what their future's like. And you know what that attracts? These bigger name franchise players, which we'll touch on a couple free agents in a little bit if we get to it. But you're attracting these guys because so many people want to play here. There's going to be like, well, everyone likes playing there. There's got to be a reason I want to go there and I want to win championships.
And our head coach now, Coach Coco, despite having, he was an assistant coach in Phoenix, as we know, and then has done a lot of great things with a lot of other teams in the NBA. His family never left Phoenix. When he was in Utah, when he was in all these other places, his kids were going to school in Phoenix. His family was living in Phoenix. He's back home. I mean, it's. Can you remember the last time we had this many players, coaches, a culture that wanted to be in Phoenix? It just feels like it literally is our time to rise. Like
right. It reminds me of the early days when Nash first got traded back and he was saying, I want to go to Phoenix. I want to play for Phoenix. Yeah. And we saw that all stem from that. And I think that we can kind of see that, but in a younger version, which will be fun to watch because we can see them all grow up and we can kind of grow with this team. Mm-hmm. And so for me, but think about this scenario. Let's say Bagley goes second, like that is also rumored, second to the Kings. Mm-hmm. Then you have the third pick being Michael Porter Jr. to Atlanta. And then for a crazy reason, we are paired with Ayton and Bagley. Now, I understand the defense. When you originally look at this, the defense might be a little iffy because of their stats in college. But like we made the argument earlier, that those don't necessarily mean a whole lot in the schemes that college basketball plays in. They play a lot more zone. They're a lot less effective. So, but here's what I like about that. And probably it's the most intriguing thing to me. Ayton and Bagley have grown up together. They played on the same high school team. They've traveled. They play AAU together. They know how to play with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you were able to somehow miraculously pull that off, one, I would say we need to give a lifelong contract to Ryan McD because he will officially have pulled off some crazy, crazy trades, and this would just be the cherry on top. I'd say give this guy a 10-year extension. Then you're talking about a super young core that's hungry, that all wants to be here. To me, that would signify that we're heading extremely in the right direction. That would advance our timeline in my eyes to from 5 years to potentially being like 3 years down the road, being a real contender for the championship, depending on, of course, whatever other super teams get developed. But I'm just saying for pure projection of talent, that's going to be a top team to deal with.
We're setting ourselves up. I think everybody who's doing it right is recognizing the historic team that is set up in Golden State. You got 2 Hall of Famers, a Defensive Player of the Year, Klay Thompson, Coach of the Year. They're Andre Iguodala. Like, they're just stacked. In my opinion, nobody's going to be getting around Golden State until they are aging themselves out. The old man on that team is Steph Curry at 30 years old. Klay Thompson's the baby at 28. You'd probably give him 4 solid years right there. At that point,
here's my only, and I apologize for cutting you off, but I do want to add this, that a lot of people aren't really talking about. And it's only because winning solves everything. Yeah. We've already seen some cracks, and just the other day in their when they were doing their celebration, there were some jabs taken amongst the teams, and there was a little bit of rambling saying, "Hey, this team isn't as close knitted as a lot of people think." Now, I'm not saying they're going to go off and trade all these players because they're dysfunctional or anything like that. I'm not saying, but I'm saying that. Let's say a super team forms with, LeBron or something, and then all of a sudden they start losing. They lose a year, maybe lose 2 years in a row. Those guys are going to start pointing fingers, and that's when we see arguments bust out. We see trades happen. So I just want our listeners to, also hold out that little bit. I know it's not something we can say this is guaranteed to happen, but a lot of people are putting this 4 or 5 year projection. But if they start losing because of other super teams being formed,
sure. Like I hear that, and somebody could get hurt. You lose Curry or Durant, or maybe even any of those guys, and all of a sudden it's a totally different competitive balance out there. But even if it's not, even if either which way happens with Golden State, the Phoenix Suns are doing it the right way. We're doing it the Golden State way in a lot of ways, in that we're drafting our talent, we're creating a culture, we're learning through the ropes together, and we're going to have, no matter who else we're looking at, we are set up to be one of the best young teams in the league. I would say there are 3 moving forward: Boston, the 76ers, and then the Phoenix Suns. I would put them in that order as well, but I would say that the Suns arguably have the most potential if we can hit on this pick and Josh Jackson continues his upward trajectory we saw in the second half of the season. Watch out.
Yeah, especially, whatever we have with those assets, we keep going back to it. McDonough has put us in a good position to be competitive as well as continue with those assets for another superstar if we need to bring him in here. The other guy that I'm curious, I want to touch on it. There has been some rumors that the Suns are interested in Young, and we just talked about the Golden State Warriors. Now, if I believe, based on a lot of the projections that I've been seeing and a lot of the rumors that have been going out. Now, it's interesting because Atlanta has been rumored to go Trae Young with their 3rd pick. That's been heavily rumored. However, if for some reason something insane happens, Michael Porter Jr. goes 2nd, all of a sudden Marvin Bagley is available. Are the Hawks going to go that direction because they believe he's one of the best talents? Young could end up sliding quite a bit if Atlanta doesn't take him. Now, adding a young 6'2" guy, or he's 6'2", he can score, he can pass really well. ESPN showed that he's one of the best passers, even though he didn't get really deemed for that because everyone was wowed by his shooting, but it actually showed that he didn't really have that good of teammates at Oklahoma, and that he was making a lot of these great passes to open them up.
Right.
I think system-wise, for me, I would be the most excited, and this seems to be the most realistic idea of what could happen as far as trades and all that go, where we would end up with Ayton and we'd end up with Young. And it reminds me of the Golden State Warriors back in 2009 when they first got Curry. But I think that Young is actually a more developed shooter at this stage coming into the pros.
I gotta agree with you. Yep.
Yeah. So you're talking. Sorry, I'll make one more point and I'll pass it to you. You got you with this team, you've got a bunch of sharpshooters. You got Booker. Ayton would be able to shoot the three. You have Bender who can shoot the three. Jackson, that's a little iffy there, but if he develops his shot, he can also shoot the three. Yeah. So what my point in that is that you can't double him, which teams were starting to do in college. They were just like, oh, we're going to throw two defenders at him that are bigger than him, and then we're going to make the rest of the team score on us, and that's when he got in trouble. You wouldn't be able to do that with this team the way it's constructed. You would not be able to double Young, and therefore he can break down and get his own shot, which is very nice.
I am in full agreement with you there. I had at one point thought Trae Young was the most overrated player projected in the top 10. At this point, though, I have gotten on that bandwagon. I am on board with Trae Young in a modern NBA fit. I love what you said there about people's focus has been around his shooting, which is great, but he is an underrated playmaker and passer. He's one of the best playmakers we had in the NCAA this year. He led the league in assists. He's 6'2". He's a smaller dude, but he's not pint-sized. You know, he's 6'2". He can shoot. He can move with the ball. And if you put players around him like you just outlined, that's a dangerous combo. Are we going to be solid on defense? I don't know. But today, honestly, we're in a new era. How much does it matter? If we are able to chuck up 43s a game and make them at a high rate, we got one of the best teams designed to do it. We got 2 7-footers down there who could be above 35% from three. We got one of the best, the 3-point champion. At the last
exactly.
Devin Booker. We've got Josh Jackson, who's not even supposed to be a 3-point shooter, who could still evolve that game. He's locking down their best offensive player. He's playing defense. He's being nasty. He's shaking it up. And then Trae Young, who is facilitating, hitting threes, finding the open guy. This is kind of crazy, but I would almost be more excited the fit that we would see with Trae Young at point guard than I would with Luka Doncic being in there. Yeah. It's like you said, I don't really know how you fit Josh Jackson, Devin Booker, and Luka all together. I mean, what Coach Kokoshkov said was, you are the position that you guard. So is Luka going to be guarding ones? Yeah. I don't know. And then if he's not, who is guarding the one? Booker? I mean, Josh Jackson, you hope you put him on their best offensive player.
Right.
So it's messy. If you get Ayton and Young, though, that is so clear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they all fit into a modern NBA. They're all running the floor. They're all playing multiple positions. They're all making plays. They're all draining threes. That could be I don't want to get over myself over this one, but that could be one of the best offensive teams we've seen since the Warriors. I mean, it's stacked pretty good, and it's a little Mike D'Antoni style. It's half the defense, twice the offense. But hey, they were one game away from the finals this year, so
and we should have been there before, but we got robbed. Yeah. The one last thing I want to enter on or add on to that is, just like I was saying before, Trae Young, do you know who his favorite player was growing up and favorite team watching?
Who's that?
The guy right behind you, Steve Nash. He has said it multiple times. He's styled his game after Steve Nash. He loved watching the Suns growing up. So again, he comes in. He's another culture guy who wants to be here, who wants to play, and he's playing for the exact same team that his idol was on. I like those. I like that 100%. I think I'm most intrigued with that because I think it's the most possible thing that could happen in this draft.
And I think it gives us the highest potential if it hits.
Absolutely.
It makes us the scariest team.
It really does. And it creates a really high ceiling for us. On the flip side of that, I mean, I know you're just talking a ton of positive, But I want to go to a little bit of a negative here and say, what would you be disappointed in coming at the end of the draft night? If the Suns didn't do X, you would be disappointed coming out of the draft.
I mean,
and is it even possible, since we got the number 1 pick and we have Ayton? Are you already like, I could not make another pick and I would be excited?
I believe you and I have a similar sentiment, and I think most Suns fans will around this one. And that it's twofold. One, I'd be disappointed if we bust. We got the number 1 pick. Yeah. We can't bust. And then the number 2 thing is if we actually end up spending and not making any other moves in the draft and spending the picks that we just naturally have. If we spend 16 and we spend 31 on players, because there's a high chance you're going to end up dropping those dudes anyways. But we have assets right now. I would love to see us turn those assets into higher likelihood of real assets that we can play with, package them up for another top 10, kick that first round pick down the road, trade it out for at least another 2019, 2020 pick, or trade it to move up. If we didn't do that, I'd be disappointed, because I think that most times your picks especially after 15, there's a very good chance that it's going to be nothing.
Right. Exactly. I do agree with you. I think that if we don't do anything other than pick our first pick and our 16th pick, and then, we have our 30th pick and then the 59th pick, that would be a loss for us, I think. And I'm saying that in the fact that we are loaded with these assets. Ryan McDonough has already come out and said that he was not going to start the season with 4 rookies on the roster. So we know that something is going to come up, or there's going to be some kind of form of trading up. I really hope it's from that 16th pick. I really think we have the assets in order to truly move up in the top 10 picks. And I would be disappointed if we didn't take those assets and do it in this draft, because we know what is in this draft and we know that it's super deep. We don't know what's in. And now, again, we're not scouters. I don't know a lot of these guys. I didn't necessarily know a few years ago. I knew Marvin Bagley. I knew Ayton, but that was because they were homegrown kids. They were in the newspaper a lot. So could the next few years, could there be a lot of good talent coming out? Sure, but that's an unknown. I rather take what I hear. Exactly. And you don't want to waste more years of Devin Booker, about to reach his prime. Like, we need to get guys in here now that are good culture guys that can attract veterans that will want to play with us. And so for that reason, if we don't trade up, I will be disappointed. I'm not necessarily, I think there's a lot of talent that could, fall to us. There's a lot of guys that I like that are all projected above where we're picking at number 16. So I would like to see us do something with that 16th pick and throw in a couple first rounders in order to move up. I don't think we're going to need those first rounders. And
totally agree. Yep. We're on the same. This is our window. Let's make the most out of this window we got right now. Let's build on this.
Yep. Okay. So with speaking about windows and veterans, a couple of things, interesting tidbits of information came out over the last 24 hours. Kawhi Leonard, it has been rumored by Woj from ESPN that he wants out. Now, his top choice is the Lakers.
Yep.
So Austin, I want to know what you think. Either one, if the Lakers were, or if San Antonio were to trade to the Lakers, what would your opinions be on that? And you can expand on, LeBron James. He's a free agent, so he can, he can go to LA if need be. I want to know what your viewpoint is on that situation, as well as the Suns part. I want to know what you're thinking if Kawhi Leonard came to the Suns. What would you be willing to give up? Would you like that move?
Right.
If he came here?
Right. So I would love to see the Lakers and Suns rivalry get back going. I would love for us to have a real rivalry going again, but I want to win that rivalry. I don't want to see us be edged out the way we've been edged out in the past. I don't want to see us lose in the Western Conference Finals again to the LA Lakers. So with that said, I like the way that the Suns' young core is coming up and the Lakers' current young core is coming up, because I think we both got good squads. Us, Josh Jackson, Devin Booker, whoever we draft now, and then Warren, Bender, Chris, maybe combinations of those. I also think that Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram are an exciting combination. I think it's also an exciting combination because I like ours a little bit more. I think that ours is better than theirs. I think that the Lakers think that theirs is good enough, but I think in 4 years we're going to be beating them by a close margins a lot. So I'd like to see that same dynamic stay there. But if they're going to get Kawhi and they're going to do that, I think it's decent for basketball when the Lakers are doing well, as much as that pains me to say. But I also think it's kind of exciting because they're not going to be good enough to beat the Warriors. I don't think that they're going to be good enough to beat the well-coached Rockets either. So it's exciting, it's good, but I think that the Lakers are blowing their wad early with this kind of move. If they could acquire Paul George, LeBron James, and Kawhi, that's a nasty combo that can definitely rival any of those squads. But I mean, Kawhi is such a crazy situation right now. Nobody knows what this dude is about. Even Greg Popovich a couple years ago was like, maybe this year I'll find out what his voice sounds like. Like he keeps his head down, he does his work, but he's still a wild card. Kawhi is a wild card, both physically and mentally. And for that reason, I don't want to see the Suns have any bit of that. I don't want to see us trade. I mean, I don't want to. If we traded the 16 pick, fine, but anything realistic, I am not interested in. None of our core members, no Josh Jackson, no first overall pick. Like, somebody else take that wild card. I don't want to be about it.
Yeah, it's rumored that it would take our first round pick and some in order to acquire him. And for me, that eliminates us out of the conversation. I think that with what we have built here, I don't think that fits in our, we always go back to the timeline. It doesn't fit in our timeline. You're talking about Kawhi Leonard. Yes, I understand he's only 28 years old, but that's still 4 years older than what a lot of our players are medium ages. And so I don't think that even if he came over, we would be a championship team or even close to it. So I'm in the window of, hey, we're going to be relevant about 3 to 4 years down the road, and like super relevant, going to conference championships if we can continue and develop. So I don't really want him to be a part of any trade that we're involved. However, if it's draft picks, we're the third tier of that team, and potentially like we get Lonzo Ball, I would be interested if we only had to give up like the 16th, the 30th pick, and maybe the Bucks pick next year,
or Chris or something too.
Yeah, and we end up getting Lonzo. I would be very happy with that.
Me too.
But I will also say with this, a part of me and a lot of Suns fans initially are going to say, I disagree 100%. But think about it, okay? I kind of want him to be traded to the Lakers because think about it. You just touched on it. Are the young core of the Lakers as good as the Suns? I don't think they are. But are they good? Yeah, I would say that they're pretty good.
Yeah.
In order for the Lakers to sign LeBron, Kawhi, and Paul George, they would have to get rid of all of those guys in order to make space for LeBron and all of them. So what I do like about it is, like you said, I think that it would make the series a little bit more competitive with Golden State and with the Lakers. So I am intrigued by that. I don't like to see the Lakers win, but I think they have a shot at it. But I think it's only like 3 to 4 years. And then guess what? All those LeBron, whenever he goes to a team, I love him to death. He's one of my favorite players to watch. But look at where Miami is now. They're still reeling from when he left because LeBron will soak all of your assets up in order to come there. And teams are willing because LeBron gives them the shot to win a championship every time.
He's like a Walmart. He's a Walmart. He goes into a town and everybody gets so excited if you don't have a Walmart. And then it dries up all the local businesses and everything there. And then the Walmart moves out and then the whole team is decimated, and is destroyed for the next 10 years.
Exactly. So for that aspect of it, I want him to go there because I think that exactly what happened. That was a perfect analogy. And so I would be interested in that. So I'm very intrigued by all this offseason. I think that, and we'll bring it to you, a lot of the offseason moves and everything like that. We'll talk you through it. but I think the Suns are going to be, I think this is a huge offseason for the Suns. I think it's going to be super dramatic. Get your seatbelts ready and click them in, because we're in for a bumpy ride, but you're in with us. Me and Austin, we're going to talk you through it. We're going to keep you going, keep you pumped about the Phoenix Suns.
The Go Gorilla Podcast. Happy Suns Day, everybody. Happy Suns Day.
Happy Suns Day. All right, until episode 2, I'm Johnny Hicks. That's Austin Sear, and we're out of here.